Ladies, gentlemen, you've eaten well. You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over. From this moment on, none of you are safe.
Over 1 year. It's been over 1 year since I started reviewing figures, with the occasional video game thrown into the mix, and somehow I haven't talked about Batman until now. That feels wrong. I mean, Batman has plenty of games and figures to talk about, so why haven't I? Well, as far as the games are concerned, I just haven't really had much interest, though I'll probably get to at least one of them at some point. As for the figures, stuff like Amazing Yamaguchi or the Mafex re-releases haven't really piqued my interest. And the Batman figures I am interested in haven't released yet. Well, that and the fact that the main retail line for DC action figures is the DC Multiverse line from McFarlane Toys. Todd's Multiverse line has had numerous amounts of praise for the quality of the figures and attempts to keep the price down, but it's also come under a lot of fire as well. The videos from Spider-Criminal give much more detail to the issues people have, but to summarize, replaying the old gimmicks of 90s comics with various variants of varying quality alongside various store exclusives, weird proportions, an inconsistent scale, and of course the numerous amounts of Batman figures that seem to supersede anyone else, especially figures of women. Remember that interview Todd did with Artemis Prime where he said that giving boys action figures of women is the first step for them to become serial killers as adults? I'm sure he was joking about that, but still, what an odd thing to say. Ironically though, my reason for not buying McFarlane figures is very simple. They work in the 7-inch scale, I collect in the 6-inch scale. That alone was reason enough. I like my stuff to scale together relatively well, and McFarlane's stuff just wasn't going to fit. But earlier this year, it was revealed that Mattel would be regaining the DC license in 2026, seemingly foretelling the end of the DC Multiverse line. Given this, I figured it would be a good idea to look at least one figure from the line if it really is ending next year, which leads us to today's figure, the DC Multiverse Gold Label Batman from Batman Year 1, coming in this nifty protective case since I bought it on eBay. If this ends up being the only McFarlane Multiverse toy I review, I figured it'd be appropriate that it would be a Batman. Given how infamous this line is for the amount of Batmans they've released over other characters, they must have it down to a science by this point, right? Well, let's not waste any more time and find out, shall we? Now, as far as the general sculpt goes, I think they've done a good job at adapting David Mazzucchelli's design of Batman into plastic form. The Year 1 design is about as basic a Batman as you can get, and that's exactly what this is. No extra pronounced muscles here, just a plain bodysuit, with the only extra details being the wrinkles in it. Or at least that's what I would be saying, but in fact there is some extra detailing on the shoulders and elbows sticking out like a sore thumb. This is because, as tends to be the standard, this Batman is partial reuse of the previously released Rebirth Batman, specifically the arms, hands, legs, and feet. Obviously, reuse in itself isn't a bad thing, but here, without the time taken to retool things, the detail in the arms now clashes with the rest of the body. And that isn't the only problem with the arms, as proportionately, they're also just a little bit smaller than they should be. Admittedly, this issue does camouflage itself pretty well once you get him out of an A stance, but it is still there, and once you see it, you can't really unsee it. Getting into the colors, I've seen some conversation that the gray of the suit is too dark, and in terms of the original prints of the comic, yeah, that one was brighter. But the gray does seem to line up a bit better with the colors of the trade re-release, sometimes. Other times it's also shown to be in a lighter gray, so maybe that one doesn't really work either. Even so, I can't really say I find this color scheme to be really bad. It may not be the most accurate, but I think the darker gray still works well, and I really like the muted yellow on the belt with all the detail being brought out with dry brushing. As for the head, 1, this sculpt is great, and 2, while some have said the skin is too bright, I think it fits just fine. So overall, in terms of accuracy to the original comic, this figure does a decent job, but has some noticeable issues that hold it back. Even so, I think this is a fairly nice looking Batman. Like, say you don't collect the Multiverse line at all, this guy still works as just a general, all-purpose Batman that you could fit in any 7-inch collection. Well, sort of, but we'll get to that later. Also, gotta say, it is awesome to get a wired cape on a retail release. I really don't care for plastic capes on my figures. They tend to make posing them really hard with how back heavy they can be, so this is much appreciated. Sure, the material here is pretty cheap, but I'm not expecting a Mafex Hush level quality. It works just fine, and it really helps to get Batman in a bunch of poses. And speaking of, as far as the articulation is concerned, there's a lot here that works fine, but a lot that could also be way, way better. I love that they've gone with the same wrist design that Mafex and SH Figuarts uses as opposed to Legends, as it allows more flexibility with posing the hands. Same with the feet. This is much better than what Hasbro's been doing over the years. The head, though, I'm a bit confused by. I'm not bothered by the dumbbell at the head, it works fine enough, but I've seen other Batman figures from McFarlane have a ball joint at the base of the neck, and I don't get why they haven't ever combined the two. I mean, we've seen that having a joint at the base of the neck doesn't stop them from giving him a wired cape, so why not use both to get the maximum range? Then there's the shoulders. These work quite similarly to what Mafex does, right down to having a gap cover to hide the space. Problem is, the sculpt of the chest ends up covering it, meaning you essentially get no butterfly movement. And speaking of the chest, while I do vastly prefer the double ball joint system for the torso as opposed to Hasbro's diaphragm joint, there isn't a whole lot of clearance here for an ab crunch. Arcing the back is no problem, but crunching forward gets you very little. At least he's got some good tilt though. That finally brings us to the legs. I do like that they haven't done a thigh cut for a much cleaner look. Admittedly, it does feel a bit pointless when you still have the visible pins, but hey, it's the thought that counts. The problem though is that there isn't a whole lot of room in there for rotation. The poses you can get him in aren't bad, but you really can feel the limitations, especially in the ab crunch and lack of proper thigh swivels. And this is accentuated by the fact that, like my previous review topic, King Ghidorah, Batman has basically no accessories. One Batarang is all he gets. No alternate hands, no extra head sculpt, just a singular Batarang that he can only hold in precisely one hand. F*** you. I don't think I really need to explain why charging full price while giving us practically no accessories is bad, right? Part of why I have so much trouble recommending Ghidorah despite how good of a figure he is exactly because of that. What baffles me even more is that DC Multiverse does release figures in blister cards with no accessories at a reduced price of $20 Canadian, about $10 less than figures that do, making the price here all the more egregious. It's like Marvel Legends releasing tarantulas with literally nothing else. Like, what are we doing here? And no, the stand and card don't count. I do appreciate them including a figure stand, but those come with every Multiverse figure. They aren't unique accessories to this release. It's really disappointing to see. Some accessories would have really helped the overall playability and display power of this guy, and not having them sadly knocks him down quite a few pegs. Now, remember when I was talking about how this Batman could sort of fit into any 7-inch collection? See, at a little under 17.5 centimeters, Bruce is naturally too tall to fit in a 1/12 display. Thing is, even when putting him next to other 7-inch figures like the NECA Last Ronin, who as far as I can tell is around 6 feet tall canonically, he still seems too tall. And while the Three Jokers Comedian Joker McFarlane release does work well with him, that isn't guaranteed for the rest of the line. It's really hard to get into since I don't collect it and the Joker is the only other one I have, but I'll link 5 points of articulations video on the figure so you can see him compared to other McFarlane figures. Ironically, based on these comparisons, he's actually smaller than he should be compared to a lot of other DC figures. It's a weird situation for this figure to be in, all coming from the fact that McFarlane Toys seems to be completely disinterested in having figures of the same character have a unified height. The end result is that he doesn't really fit in properly anywhere. A really bizarre situation I wasn't expecting to see. So that was the first, and possibly only, review of a DC Multiverse figure I've done. And the best way I can put it is that I see a lot of potential, but the end result is honestly mediocre. Off proportions, slightly inaccurate, missing or underdone articulation, nearly no accessories while still charging full price, and somehow simultaneously being too big and too small to fit in scale-wise with other figures. I can't really recommend this guy to anyone outside of being custom fodder, or if you really need a year 1 Batman. And even then, you're probably better off saving up your money and getting the Mezco one once it comes up for pre-orders. I'm glad I finally got a chance to talk about an action figure from McFarlane Toys, but I also have to say that the end result is pretty disappointing. And on that dour note, we're at the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Later.